Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 2 of the 2025 Sports 2000 Championship. My name is Zach Sweeney to talk you through all of the racing action here at Brands Hatch. Looking forward to this one as I'm looking at the qualifying order now, and it's looking very, very spicy indeed. Of course, prototypes and a multitude of different classes to talk through over the next 20 odd minutes of racing that we've got for the Sports 2000. 25 minutes in fact, so a little extra 5 minutes on top of that. We've seen some fantastic racing thus far today at Brands Hatch, obviously just off the back of the Miata Trophy. That delivered one of the best races I have ever seen. So some big shoes to fill for the Sports 2000 Championship, but looking very, very good indeed. Of course, they're just sort of getting themselves filed up and onto the grid, ready for their formation lap, and then we'll be able to get ourselves through the grid graphic and to see who's starting when. Of course, a lot of different looking cars and a couple of different classes to talk through as well. Obviously, all fighting for their own respective championship through the Duratec and in the Historic Championship as well, with points definitely on offer, but considering it's so early on in the season, not the biggest priority, just about going out there, going quick, churning in some good lap times and winning some races. That being said, in terms of the championship, it is actually quite close in both the Duratec and the Historic. Joshua Law leads the way ahead of Timothy Tudor just by 7 points, and then 2 points back is Richard Johnson. A further 2 points back is tied between Michael Gibbons and Paul Traherne for the top 5. And then in the Historic, it's Nick Johnson from Scriver. There's only 8 points between the pair of those, with Peter Needham, Simon Alderworth and Mark Narao, the top 5 again, only sort of 17 points separating the entirety of the top 5. Fair enough, you have to take that with a bit of a pinch of salt because it's so early on in the season, but just goes to show that we have got a very, very competitive championship ahead of us indeed. They are out there onto the formation lap at the moment. It should be about a 2-minute formation lap. Again, just trying to get the tyres into the right operating window, especially in sort of more downforce-orientated prototype cars that we've got here. You want to make sure that those tyres are up to scratch. You don't want to be having any surprises by the time you get yourself down into turn number 1. Of course, like I say, run you through the grid as soon as we can. And there we go. So, on pole position, it is going to be Michael Gibbons ahead of Duratec Championship leader Joshua Law on the front row. Behind that, we've got Mackenzie Walker and Ben Cater for row number 2. The top 5 is rounded out by Richard Johnson. Alongside him, David Houghton for the top 3 rows. Behind that, Timothy Tudor. Second place in the Duratec Championship, lines up 7th ahead of Roger Donnan. The top 10 is rounded out by Ashley Law and Peter Browver. Behind that, Peter Williams and James Barwell for the top 6 rows there. The 88 and the 77 lining up quite nicely on the same row. Peach from Chittenden at the top 7 rows ahead of Needham, who rounds out the top 15. Behind that, we have John Owen to round off the top 16 on row number 8. Behind that, we've got Off and Eiley for 17th and 18th, respectively. Then in P19, Adrian Ridge and Rhoda Tomasi, the top 20. There's a few more drivers behind that as well. Johnson, Fry, Alderworth and Clifton there to round off the front 13 rows. And a very lonely row 14 there for Richard Cook at the back of the field. We were meant to have another car 45. Unfortunately, they've withdrawn ahead of this race. So, I say just, the 27 cars that we've got hurdling towards turn number 1 for the first time. 25 minutes, of course, on the clock. Standing start to go with it as well. Should be very, very exciting indeed. Very much looking forward to this one, of course. As always, let us know where you're watching from in the YouTube or Facebook comments. Let us know who you're supporting. Let us know who your favourite driver thus far of today has been. Let us know what race sort of you've been most impressed by thus far in the weekend as well. Everything, of course, very, very appreciated. And share the broadcast around as well. Get as many people watching some fantastic racing here at Brands Hatch as possible. Into the final couple of corners then for our race leaders. They'll line themselves up on the grid, and then of course wait for everyone else to line themselves up as well. That's the problem with such a big grid. I mean, there's not much of a problem. It's a good headache to have, but those that start towards the front, they have to sit and not have any load going into their tyres for, you know, a good sort of a minute and a half while they wait for everyone at the back of the field to line themselves up before they can then get going themselves. So going to be interesting to see who's got the most grip towards T1. We've seen the outside line be quite advantageous over the course of today, but equally that inside line gives you the defensive position that allows you to maintain that position, but it all comes down to the run that you get into Druids. It's all good getting the lead through Paddock if you're then unable to get it through and done into Druids, because it is a very much a sequence. If you're side by side into Paddock, you then seal the deal into Druids. Maybe if it's a really, really good battle, you can get it done into Graham as well. So all the cars getting themselves lined up. 25 minutes will go on to the clock. I'm just waiting for the last couple to find their grid slots. 27 cars before the green flag. Of course, at the back of the grid will wave. Michael Gibbons, Joshua Law on the front row. Of course, both of them. One of them is leading the championship in the Duratec. The other one, P4, and looking to gain some ground. There's a couple of discussions being made to the 73. That's Ashley Law will be lining up P9. Maybe some uncertainties as to whether the car can go, maybe stalled or whatever is going on there on the grid that's delaying the start ever so slightly. But discussions with the marshals, start delayed. As you can see there, that board. So they're going to be sat for a little while longer, maybe while they wheel that car out of the way or get it restarted or whatever the issue is. And then we'll be able to get ourselves underway and racing as soon as possible. Just to get the next 25 minutes. And hopefully what goes with it, a very, very strong race as well. Let's see, Marshall's getting behind the car. Giving some instruction. More marshals running over to be of assistance. So I assume it's going to be a case that car won't be taking to the start. Always get a little bit complicated when things go wrong right when you don't want them to, but it does mean that everyone's going to be sat stationary for so much longer. And again, that load coming out of the tyres and the brakes and the drivers, like I was saying earlier with the safety car in was it the Focus Cup or the red flag in the Radicals, I should say. When it comes to the adrenaline of the drivers, and that goes up again on the formation app, and you ramp yourself up, you get ready to go, and then you're aborted, and you have to wait for a good minute, 2 minutes while they're faffing about and sorting themselves out to get going again. But that is a shame for Ashley Law, who won't be taken to the start of this race. Another driver there, the front row, Joshua Law, waving quite frantically, trying to get the attention of someone potentially. There is the 91. There he is in all its glory. Very nice livery actually as well. I like the design on the front, the sort of wings, I suppose. The colour scheme as well looks fantastic alongside as well. Similar colour scheme in the form of Michael Gibbons. He keeps some company on the front row. In fact, the front three are blue, white, and black. Lovely panning shot there, getting all of the cars, all 27. Strong that we've got for the grid. Of course, there you can see the best part of sort of maybe the front 15 as they go around again. For what I assume will be a second formation lap to sort themselves out again, recuperate, and then we'll be able to go racing once more. So. Bit of a delayed start, of course, with Ashley Law unfortunately having the issues at the start there. So we'll go around again, and then once more find themselves getting the tyres up to temperature. I think that might be a part of the reason as to why they want to go again. But nice to see that Joshua Law was sort of able to sort of get going, despite the fact he was sort of waving frantically. Would have hated to see that there would be a problem for the championship leader so early on. Of course, they did have around a couple of weeks ago, I say a couple of weeks ago, about a month ago, the Saturday the 19th to the Sunday of 20th of April at Silverstone. Later on in the year, they'll be taking to Alton Park in August for the US Auto Show, and then they'll be supporting the GT Cup Championship once again at Donington and Snetterton to round off the year in September and October. So still plenty of racing still for these guys to come, as well as some non-championship rounds over in Zola, I believe I read earlier in the day as well. So some very fun times for this championship, and also sort of credits itself as one of the most cost-effective ways to get into sort of sports car prototype racing in terms of sort of cost per minute. like I say, it's not cheap by any means, but it's good value. Because motorsport never is cheap, but in terms of what you pay versus what you get a lot when it comes to the Sports 2000 class. So looking forward to the racing that we've got on. Of course, this is my first time watching this championship, so looking to see sort of what sort of racing they can put on for us. After looking at the cars, they look absolutely fantastic. They sound absolutely fantastic when they blitz past the commentary box. You can hear them coming from a mile away. Let's put it that way. And hopefully all the fans in attendance here. Actually, Brands Hatch got a few people sort of wandering the track. A few grandstands that have got good bums in seats, which is what we love to see. As many spectators as possible taking to the track. What a beautiful track Brands Hatch is. One of the best racetracks in the world by far. And one of my favorites that I've been to as well. Brands Hatch is beautiful, it's stunning. The undulation really sort of captivates you. You don't realize it on TV. It doesn't really do it justice until you're here and you see just how steep the gradients of everything is. It is remarkable. So, yeah, they're lining themselves up. Let's try this again, shall we? See if we can get no problems for the second go at it for the Sports 2000 Championship race, number 6 of the day. Lining themselves up once more. Just one short this time. Still, though, just a quick reminder, Michael Gibbons, Joshua Law, Mackenzie Walker, and Ben Cater, the front 2 rows of the grid. Richard Johnson and David Houghton just in behind that. Timothy Tudor, Roger Donnan. It won't be Ashley Law taking to P9. Peter Brawver will be on his own on row number 5. Green flag waves at the back of the field. 25 minutes on the clock, and we go racing for the Sports 2000 Championship. Good start from second place there from Joshua Law, the championship leader, able to catapult himself into the lead of the race. 4th place as well, Ben Cater trying to get involved as they hurdle the way down Paddock Hill Bend towards Druids for the first time. Let's see if there's going to be any moves being made. Slow start, of course, towards the back end of the field. A lot of people having to take to the start, of course. 27 cars strong, side by side between the 148. That's Chittenden versus, I believe it was the 117 of Peach. So they're going to be side by side down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend. 2x2, Noah's Ark style they go. In fact, it's the 28 that he's side by side with. That's going to be Owen in the Duratec B class. So 2 different classes to sort of contend with. And that, again, is the thing that you've got to be mindful of. Are you battling intra-class? Are you battling inter-class? That was a car that won't be battling in any class because they've gone off and presumably ended their race quite early on. We'll confirm, of course, as soon as we can as to who that is, but pulling off quite early in this race, settling in quite nicely, though, the majority of the field. And when they break the beam at the start-finish straight, we'll confirm the full running order of the first lap. But so far, so good for the most part. I mean, 27 cars and only sort of 1 problem on the opening lap. You can't really complain with a percentage success rate. They run their way through Westfield. We'll pick them up as they exit through Sheen Curve. There, of course, are the 2 race leaders going battle side by side between the pair of them going into Clark Curve. They put their foot to the floor, and it's a drag race towards the line. Of course, it's the number 1 of Gibbons trying to hold firm and trying to get a move done on the 91 of Joshua Law, who's just able to hang on for the opening lap. It's Law from Gibbons, Cater involved as well there. 3 cars nose to tail in the fight for the lead. Johnson about 0.6 of a second back. Houghton the top 5 from Tudor, Walker, Donnan, Brawver and Barwell. Then the top 10. Of course, the top 6, 7, as you can see, all Duratec A class. So they're all fighting for the same championship at the front end of the field. Through Surtees, all about the exit through this corner, keeping that minimum speed up because it's a really long left-hander, but it is uphill. No overtakes to be done here as waved yellow flags in effect, presumably for that car that we lost on the opening lap. Just going to see if anyone didn't break the beam going into the final corner. It might well have been Chittenden. I think it might well have been, yeah, tumbled down to P25, lost 11 place at that last lap. So, yeah, I presume it will be the 148 Duratec DB class. Unfortunately out for Chittenden. And there's the 73 as well, having a couple of issues. Who is that we've got rolling very, very slowly indeed? That's going to be Law. So was that Ashley Law? It was. So Ashley Law was able to take to the start. I think it was from the pit lane, and unfortunately they've had to pull over, and that could well be their race done. So whatever issue befell them at the start, the initial start, unfortunately has struck again and put them on the back foot in this championship. Back to the front though. Still close between the top 4. Still close between the 3 behind in the fight for 5, 6, and 7. There's still plenty of racing action still to come. Incredibly close, incredibly competitive championship. Just looking at the other classes that we've got in regards to any intra-class battles, I think for the most part they're sort of spread out. So any on-track battles you see is, oh my word, that is the worst place possible that you want to be stopped. Stationary. Yellow flags surely will be ferociously waved on the exit of Graham Hill Bend. Of course, you should be able to see the car stationary, but that is the last thing you want, and understandably so. A safety car has been brought out to neutralise the racing action because, yeah, for Ashley Law, it's not safe for them at all to be sat stationary. It's not safe for anyone else to have them sat stationary either, because Graham Hill Bend is, I mean, it's slow. It looks like it could be quite slow, but you actually take it at quite some speed. You carry it's very much a medium speed corner, especially with the way you sort of try to exploit the track limits on the exit as much as you can. Yeah, you still have to brake and slow down a considerable amount, but you take it at quite fast speed. And if you get that wrong and you're unable to sort of keep the car under the limit of grip, to get underneath into the left-hand side of the track, you're going straight into the rear end of Ashley Law, and that's the last thing anyone would want. So safety car in effect while they sort out that 73. Just waiting on instruction before they can get themselves out of the car. And then, well, a quick look over that car, and hopefully they'll be all good to go for tomorrow's racing action. Because, yeah, these guys have got a further, off the top of my head, 2 races to take to for tomorrow. Indeed, no, they've got another race. They've got another 25-minute race to do over Sunday alongside the Radical Cup UK, MSVR All-Comers and the GT Cup Championship for tomorrow. So plenty of action to sink our teeth into here at Brands Hatch. Of course, you will have Mark Worrell back. He's going to be back from his travels up in Alton Park tomorrow. He's got a brutal weekend, going all the way up to Cheshire and then down to Kent. It is a mighty weekend, but well, fair play to the man. He's awesome in all of his own rights, is Mark Worrell. And yeah, he'll be back to talk you through all of the racing action for tomorrow. And well, looking very, very good indeed. Radical Cup had some fantastic action today, in terms of their overtaking and the enjoyability. I mean, the lap 1 incident that we had as well caused a bit of carnage. MSVR All-Comers, of course, combined now with the Clear Cup GB. You've got the likes of Nikki Taylor racing in that, the reigning champion. Again, a very competitive championship, albeit with 3 cars in Clio Cup, and then obviously the rest of the all-comers. And obviously you've got you've got GT Cup, right? GT Cup, like we saw earlier with the GTH class, and also in the GT3 overall, we saw some fantastic racing. So you will not be disappointed here at Brands Hatch, and it just delivers in terms of racing, especially at this level. Sort of, you've got cars that are quick, but they're not overwhelmingly quick, right? They're suitable for tracks like these, where it is a bit narrower in some points and sometimes a bit hard to overtake, but overall you can have some cracking racing if you've got the right field of drivers and the right field of cars, which we most definitely do have for the Sports 2000 class. That timer ticking down though, 7 minutes into this race already. Of course, though, make sure that you get yourself down to Brands Hatch, because like I said earlier, when it comes to the the undulation and everything, and if you've not been to Brands Hatch before and you're looking at this and you think, oh yeah, it's a nice track, it's all right, calm down. Genuinely come down and just watch, because of course we're limited in terms of the coverage for tomorrow. So if you want to be watching as many racing series tomorrow, come down to Brands Hatch, get yourself a ticket on the gate and get yourself in one of the grandstands. It's been a lovely weekend in terms of weather. Get yourself down to Brands Hatch and get yourself watching some racing, because there's nothing like being at a racetrack. And don't get me wrong, I love watching racing at home, I love watching it on the telly. It's convenient, because, who wants to be walking around all day, your feet are knackered, but it's so worth it. You hear the sounds, you smell the smells, you see the sights. Everything is just so much better when you go to a racetrack. So yeah, get yourselves down. If you're free, I mean, what else you got to be doing on a Sunday? You're barely, people are barely at work, so just come down. Bring your family. Make it a lovely day out here in Kent, at the south of England. Sports 2000, though, at the moment, still neutralised under safety car, still waiting for the car of Ashley Lords that I believe to be recovered. I mean, just looking out the commentary box window and swinging on the live feed, they are now, being towed back into the into the pit lane and then, of course, back into the paddock. So they're off the track, and quite conveniently, actually, Graham Hill Bend is right outside the sort of access road into the pit lane. So very, very handy, actually. So I assume we'll be able to go racing at the end of this lap once more, and hopefully we'll be able to see some more exciting action between Josh Law and Michael Gibbons at the front of the field in terms of the Duratec A class, because that is the one that's looking the most spicy. The top 7, obviously all in class, all competing, all competitive with each other. There's no sort of major disparities in terms of pace. I mean, to be fair, Michael Gibbons did put it on pole by about half a second over Joshua Law, but when it comes to the race, it seems that Law has really been able to step it up, particularly with a good start. But behind Law, I mean, you had Mackenzie Walker and Ben Cater separated by only a couple of tenths of a second. Richard Johnson and David Houghton was only separated by about 0.04 of a second between the pair of each other. So incredibly close and incredibly competitive, which is what we like to see. We always love some good racing, which is exactly what we've got. Safety car should be in at the end of the lap, and we'll be able to go racing again for what will be, obviously we've gone through, we've eaten into about 10 minutes of race time thus far, but 15.5 minutes still to go, still plenty of opportunity for things to happen. So it'll be Law from Gibbons, from Cater, Johnson, Tudor, the top 5, Walker, Houghton, Donnan, Brover, Barwell and Williams, the top 11, Owen, Off, Needham, Peach, the top 15, as we get ready to go racing once more. It will be our championship leader then that controls the pace at the front of the field. By 7 points, he leads the championship, and he puts his foot to the floor, sends us going very, very early. The final 15 minutes then of the first race of the weekend for the Sports 2000 class. And it's Law that leads into turn number 1. Gibbons unable really to launch much of an attack going into Paddock Hill Bend. The 21 of Johnson looks to go to the inside of Cater. That's the fight for the podium positions. Gets the send very nicely indeed. Opens the door, in fact, from behind for potentially Tudor and Walker to get involved as well. There's the 82 of Cater, now swamped by the 40, the very yellow car there of Tudor, who at the moment is second place in the championship, so wants to be making some moves, especially when Josh Law is leading the way. 14.5 minutes left to go as we're halfway through the first lap under restart. Law leads from Gibbons. There's the gap at the front. They're now being able to break away by about a second and a half, at least a couple of car lengths back to the driver in third, which will be Johnson now. The 21 worked his way up the inside of the first corner of Paddock Hill Bend and nipped his way onto the podium. Will it be a two-way fight at the front, or will the 21 be able to close the gap and bring this race into a 3-horse battle in terms of the Duratec A class? Looking through the rest of the field as well, and we'll especially see it when they break the beam, but it seems that Browver leads the way in Duratec B. Donnan leads the way in Duratec DB as well. So plenty of classes, plenty of race winners to be looking at. That's the great thing about multi-class racing, is that there's more than one winner, so everyone can sort of have a bite of the cherry. There's the 77, that's a little bit further down. This is Barwell under pressure from Williams, so he'll be in P10 at the moment. Under pressure going into Clark Curve, but not really too much that the 34 can sort of really do from that place. That's Donnan, so they're going to be battling. This will be towards the lower end of the top 10. Going to see what the gap is. Gibbons from Law is 1.5 tenths of a second. Side by side between these two as well, as the 117 looks to go to the outside of Paddock Hill Bend. There's the fight at the front, though. The one under pressure, trying to get the switch back, though, is Gibbons. As Gibbons was able to get himself into the race lead. Law then tried to get the up and under, didn't quite work. Now Gibbons is going to be put under pressure, goes defensive into Surtees, squeezes Law to the outside of the circuit, tries to take as much of the racing line as he possibly can. Nicely done indeed from Gibbons, who commanded the qualifying session. Law, though, of course, as our championship leader, will not be taking that for an answer. He still thinks this race is alive. He's still going to battle it in the slipstream for as long as possible into Hawthorne's Bend. Has to look to the outside, but can't quite squeeze and move through there. And Gibbons able to hang on into Westfield. No way through there. So it's going to be a little bit quiet now, I reckon, for the best part of this lap. Let's see if Law can stay with Gibbons, or if the fact that he was leading was purely down to a good race start. Will he have the pace on merit to stay with the pole sitter? Of course, he's got less time in this race to really do anything about it, but look at that gap already, just half a lap, and it's about a second that's been able to grow between Law and Gibbons. So I think this could well be a runaway victory for Gibbons if Law's not careful. I mean, nothing is a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination, but he's definitely doing himself a couple of favours by bridging that gap to over a second. Fights up and down as well. I mean, we talked about the battle between Johnson, Cater and Tudor there, swapping places. Walker involved as well. So 4-car fight for the podium place in the Duratec A and the overall. What else we got in terms of the battles? We got Duratec B very, very close as well. Peach versus Needham. That's the battle for 4th place. 3rd place in class, actually. Owen sort of by himself. He's 2nd place in class. Bravo leads the way in Duratec B, though. 10th place overall and about 0.4 of a second off the back of Donnan for 9th place overall. So, yeah, plenty of battles to sort of sink our teeth into and plenty of trains to sort of look at, because these drivers having to deal with the pressure of being in a pack. And it's one of those skills that you can sort of, you can get a driver coach and you can sort of kind of teach it, right? You can say, do this, don't do this, and you can give them a sort of a basic groundwork, but it's not until you get into a pack and you're under pressure, you're looking forwards to attack, backwards to defend, you're under pressure, for the best part of the entire race. It's not until you get into a situation like that where you really start to build that experience on how to deal with those overwhelming situations. That definitely is not one of them. That's a car beached on the exit of, that's going to be Surtees. So either running wide, the 96, who is that? That's beached it. That's going to be Clifton in the historic C class. Able to get going again though, so not down but not out of this race. So yellow flag's temporarily out, but no cause for another safety car with the car being beached. So that's always a positive sign. 10 minutes left to go and very, very close. The 117 on the back of Alpha. That's going to be Peach looking to go to the outside in the orange and black machine. And close into Druids. Oh my word, the 34 big lockup. That's Donnan fighting Barwell and Browver for overall position. Going into Druids and a huge lockup. Hopefully no flat spots there. This fight here still going on as well. The orange and black machine, the 117, just able to stay in touch with the car in front. So like I say, Peach versus Off, but they're in 2 different classes. So championship points will be sort of divvied up differently. So no sort of gain for going for the overall position, but still, you want to make the most of the race. You want to have as much fun as you can, even if you're maybe not necessarily going to yield more points out of it. You're going to yield a bit more fun out of it. The gap at the front has gained. And 9 minutes left to go in terms of this race. The gap at the front we'll see as it goes to, as they break the beam between Gibbons and Law, because, well, Gibbons has just had some sensational pace. We've been told of a couple of issues over the course of this race. We'll see, obviously, what can go on. That is what it was. A big shunt on the way into Hawthorns. The 82, that is going to be Cater. I imagine that would have been involved in some capacity with the fight for the podium. It seems the driver is out and okay. Understandably, a red flag. So a big shunt there. Good to confirm that the driver seems to be all okay. But, yeah, that's going to bring... a stoppage to this race with 8.5 minutes left to go. We'll see if we're able to get this, the race restarted. But that is not good at all for Cater. Thankfully, though, like we say, the crash looked bad, but the driver is all out and all okay. So driver is instructed to stop on the grid for the red flag. Now, for Michael Gibbons, the race leader, right, the number one, he does not want this race to restart because he'll get the win. Right. That being said, he was faster and should win anyway if the race does get restarted. But you don't want to carry that sort of risk. At the moment, Josh Law will be sat there in second, thinking, "Well, come on, I want another standing start. I want another sort of bite of the cherry and see if I can find my way through." Particularly based on the initial get-go that Law had versus Gibbons. And we're going to jump to. We're going to see there. You can see. Well, yeah. Sort of the train of event, the events that occurred just under the bridge. The time arc squealed into the barrier, bounced sort of back onto the track, and it's just sort of like a storyline that you can see. Crazy that has happened. I don't think I've ever sort of seen any sort of incident similar to that. But that car most definitely is not going to be restarting this race, and not an incident you typically see going into Hawthorns. But again, when you're fighting, I mean, well, Keita had, like I say, Tudor, Walker, and Johnson surrounding him, so maybe there was some sort of contact there. No idea. Don't want to really sort of maybe speculate too much, but yeah, interesting way to bring a premature stoppage to this race. But yeah, other than that, the race at the front was looking pretty okay. It was stable with Gibbons obviously bridging the gap. The sort of the last lap that we saw was about a 2/10 differential between Gibbons and Law, 29.9 compared to a 30.1. So it seems that Gibbons didn't have the measure in terms of pace. But yeah, under red flag now. So another stoppage to the Sports 2000 class. So suboptimal, to say the least, but with the efficiency, of course, of the ambulance crew, the medical car there to obviously do any checks that they need to, and, of course, the recovery team to get that car out of the way as soon as possible, and all that debris sort of swept away and everything sorted. Takes a good team to get that done efficiently, and that's exactly what we've got here at Brands Hatch. So, again, big thank you to all the marshals, recovery crew, ambulance drivers, everything that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that the race weekend can run as smoothly as possible. There is the flatbed to go and get the car, or what's left of it. But yeah, thankfully the driver was able to get out, jump over the fence and just sit on the mound and sort of reflect on what had happened, because everything like that had just happened so quickly. You can't even really blink or react before it all goes wrong. It just sort of happens, and then you're sort of a passenger, even if it's sort of one of those things where you drift into each other. A slight little tap at speeds and cars like this as well. And it's going to go very, very wrong, very, very quickly. But, yeah. We'll see if we're able to get this race restarted. It was 8 minutes and 54 seconds left on the clock at the time of the stoppage. And the race order, as it was when we went to red flag, was Michael Gibbons from Law, the top two in Duratec A. Then came Johnson in P3 the last time they broke the beam. Of course, it was Keita that we saw in the wall, so he won't be there in the standings. Tudor from Walker. Houghton and Barwell round off the top 8 overall, top 7 now overall. Donnan in the lead of the way in Duratec DB. Then comes Brower leading the way in Duratec B. Williams in the 88 machine. Head of Owen, Off, and Peach. They were doing battle for P13 overall as well. Needham from Eiley, Ridge, and Tomasi, the top 18 overall. From Johnson, Aldworth, Fry, Cook, Clifton, Ashley Law, unfortunately, is going to be out of this race, and so too for Chittenden, who had some problems at the end. We think they're going to be calling this race here. They don't have the time, obviously, to get everything restarted and sorted. So there you can see the checker flag being waved, and that is going to conclude then the Sports 2000 Championship. Not the way that we'd like to end it, but unfortunately racing is racing, and that is going to allow Michael Gibbons to be the winner overall in the Duratec A, with Josh Law taking second place. Johnson will then cross the line in third. We'll run you through the full results, of course, as everyone gets over the line to break the beam in the right place, so obviously all the timing gets done properly. But yeah, very interesting turn of events to start the fourth to final race of the day. Of course, these guys won't be back out until tomorrow, so they've got a long time to sit on this race, while we eagerly anticipate the recovery team getting everything sorted, getting that car out of the way, getting everything swept. But that's the thing. We're such a large team, and thank you to all of the volunteers that do the work. Of course, any racetrack, you are absolute legends. It just means that you can have one team dealing with recovering the car, the other team dealing with sweeping everything away, getting the debris off the road. It just makes everything so much smoother. We're making our way onto the Indy circuit, onto the access road and into the pit lane. Back to the paddock, and all of them may be going back to the hotel or camping or whatever. They deserve a nice big meal, refresh, and then go again for their second race tomorrow. Of course, make sure you do come down to Brands Hatch if you're free tomorrow, if you're local. Even if you're not, no excuses. Find your way to Brands Hatch somehow and enjoy some good racing. GT Cup, Radicals, and these guys will be out tomorrow alongside the MSVR All-Comers, Clear Cup GB, so plenty of action to sink your teeth into. Yeah, brilliant stuff to witness and to watch. Of course, we've been spoiled in terms of the racing action that we've had today. Of course, all the different categories, and like I say, up until the stoppage, this race was also looking pretty good as well. Just a shame, of course, that the race reached the end that it did. Just waiting for the last couple of people to make their way through, and then we'll run you through the results as of the red flag, however they divvy that up and change things. I believe these will be the final results, though. unconfirmed provisional results as things stand, of course, for the Sports 2000 Championship at the red flag. So again, like I say, preface, these are provisional results, subject to change, of course, after review from the race director regarding the red flag. Michael Gibbons from Josh Law 1 and 2 ahead of Johnson. Cater, of course, who was involved in the crash, but if there is a countback lap, then we'll get that P4. Tudor from Walker 5th and 6th. Houghton from Barwell, Donnan and Browver leading their respective classes in 9th and 10th overall. The 88 of Williams from Owen off and Peach, Needham the top 15, ahead of Eiley and Ridge in 16th and 17th. Tomasi, Johnson and Aldworth round off the top 20 on the grid. Behind that, Fry, Clifton, Cook, Law and Chittenden. Unfortunately for Law and Chittenden, of course, didn't really get much of a race. The 148 got beached on the opening lap and the Law didn't take to the start and then took to a restart and then didn't last a couple of laps and brought out the first safety car of the race. Gibbons was able to set the fast lap of the race as well. The Sports 2000 class will be out tomorrow. Make sure you come down to Brands so you can see him, and we'll see you next time for the next race of the day.